Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome everyone to March 20th Utilities Committee meeting. It's 9:39. Getting started with potential McCormick Reservoir surplus.
Right, so this is an update, and we brought this issue before the committee at the last meeting. The sketch that you have, Exhibit A, is basically what the city of Bremerton came back with. And you can see the red. They had actually proposed, initially we were just talking about the reservoir, they had actually come back with that they wanted to purchase the reservoir and that whole area in the red. So that was a bit of a divergence from what we had originally discussed. Staff knew that that really wasn't going to work. So this is just, it's in process. The one thing that, so what I marked in black was we could, because there's two parcels there. There's the yellow parcel and then the red parcel that actually make up our ownership in that zoning. And over in the yellow area, you can see reservoir easement to be relinquished by Bremerton. So it was about 4 or 5 years ago, well, 2014, we went through the utility committee, and for those that have been on long enough, recall that we actually established easements for 2 reservoir sites for Bremerton in the yellow. So those would be extinguished, and what you could easily do is you do a boundary line adjustment, and you would just create the black as a small parcel, and then we would have all the yellow for our use. And whether or not you could access this independently off that old Figley Road, but then it comes around behind. I think that's a private road. I'd have to see what the easement says to see if Bremerton could even legally use that to come in on the north side. Otherwise, they would just come in through
Punch a road in.
this. Well, this road's already up to the reservoir, so that easement would just be inclusive of both of us. So either way, I mean, I have no problem doing a reservoir and a land purchase, but it would be a greatly reduced. I would propose that it would just be what's outlined in black here. And there's this easement across the road that's an infiltration pond. I actually designed this back when I was at Olson back in 93. And what this easement is this is when you want to drain the reservoir to clean it. You can't just run it into a ditch because it doesn't have the pH or the temperature properties that you can just run it into a ditch. So this is an infiltration pond that drains into. So this easement would have to be revised to include both Bremerton, just like this access easement if they came in from here. So it's kind of an update.
Okay.
Why do they want so much?
I think they were just looking at this as being a utility property that they would have in the future. My sense is, yeah, that makes sense to an amount, but I know that the council isn't going to support that full amount. But I think it's worth keeping this process going. So we'll continue the conversations and report back.
Have you been out there?
No, I've not.
When do you think that's going to move forward, Mark? This year still?
Pardon?
That this will move forward this year, do you think?
Yeah, I think by the end of 2017 we should have it wrapped. Okay, the next item, this is more kind of a heads up, something that'll be on the 28th. We had brought this to the committee 1 or 2 meetings ago about the well 8 pump that went down, and then we got caught up in the whole procurement thing, and so it's been delayed a couple months. So this is more of just a heads up that we finally have this back on the agenda. We went through the full advertisement process, formal advertisement for work, as opposed to just purchasing a pump. This needs to be work, and it needs to be warranted work. We had some discussions about, well, they're just setting the pump. I'm like, no, they're pulling the old pump, they're putting in a new pump, they're making connections with the discharge pipes, setting it in place, and that needs to be warranted. You know, if those connections aren't properly sealed, you can start getting air into the discharge line, things like that. So it will be work, and I think the value, it's $31,000. So it will be a adoption of a resolution and then a small works contract for that work. And we do have a fairly short timeline on the contract, but they have to be completely done by the end of June, because we need to get this water source back online.
So they're moving forward with getting the city business license in.
Yeah.
Where are
Yeah.
they located? Where are they from?
Holt,
Centralia?
no, I think they were Seattle area.
Okay.
The full contract's in the, it'll be in your packet. I think they were in Seattle.
Okay.
Oh, no, Pierce County, they're out of Pierce County.
I don't know if it really matters, but it looks like you might be missing a page here, because it
Yeah.
jumps from the B to the L's.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So I chose, even in the packet, to save paper,
Oh, okay, because there was no selection from those.
because the way we queried it, there were
Okay.
a lot, and it didn't make sense. So I just added the sheets that had the three that actually provided a proposal,
Okay.
rather than the 6 pages of,
Maybe it doesn't like a lot of paper.
yeah, I don't like wasting paper.
You could print 2 pages to a side. But then
Well,
you
then
can
that-
It's so hard
double-sided.
But then that creates problems for the people that copy them, and
You know.
like, even when I run these packets, I don't do double-sided, because what inevitably
Yeah.
will happen
Yeah.
is I'll say, hey, can you make packets? And they'll start going through, and they'll just copy it, and then you'll be in the middle of a meeting, and you're gonna get page 1, 3, 5, and 7, and then you're running out in the middle of the meeting to copy 2, 6, 2, 4, 6, and 8. So, yeah. So I just excluded them.
Special purpose district.
Special purpose district update. And speaking of, oh. I know
That's
what
about the
I-
sewer spill?
Well, okay, so I connected 2 dots. So I talked at the council meeting the other night about, hey, we had a sewage spill, and you're gonna see it in the paper. Not that I didn't know that as I said that, there was already an article in the paper. I'm really just putting this, connecting these two from the standpoint of the need to get this special purpose district in place. It's more than just making sure that McCormick, as they build this new McCormick Communities, has sewer and water, and we don't have to have a moratorium. It has to do with infrastructure that will be upgraded by the developer as part of this agreement, so that these things don't happen. That McCormick pump station has now, in the 9 years, coming up on 10 that I've been here, this is the second time we've had an event where we've gotten sewage into Ross Creek. The first time was when we had the power outage in, God, what was that? That was like 2000, this is when we lost the truck, this is when we had snow for 17 days, and anyway, we ended up having a power outage in this area, and the emergency generator went down. And we actually had people on standby that would pump it down the best they could, and then they were having the water pump was leaking, and so antifreeze, we were literally pouring water and antifreeze in once we got it back up and running, and we had people out there all night where every 3 hours they would turn on the pump and start pouring water and antifreeze to get the generator to work, because Puget Sound Energy wasn't going to get to that for days and days. So we had the initial event where we had the power outage, and then the generator failed, and we had no way of that size to keep up with that. So that was the first event, and then the second event was this recent one where what we found out was that pump 2 failed, had some sort of a fairly significant failure. We think maybe a chunk of concrete got sucked up into the impellers.
Oh, wow.
My
But
goodness.
it actually, its failure actually caused the control panel conductors to fail. And that didn't allow pump 1 to run because the whole control panel, the connectors and conductors or whatever, were damaged. So we had immediately Flowhawks are on call, sewage people come out. They were there within an hour. They were pumping it down. Mike, our electrician, got out there. He was out after about 4 or 5 hours. He was able to hardwire the power source to pump 1 and get that going. We did have a backup pump, but putting another pump in the hole didn't do any good because they wouldn't operate because the control panel was damaged.
Right.
So by the time it took them a few days of doing that before we were able to get the control panel rebuilt. But it lends itself to the need to have wet well, dry well. So these submersible duplex wet well systems that the city has a lot of. Having a wet well that's separate from the dry well is what this, and even these control panel parts are like really old, circa 1993. It doesn't seem that old in my lifetime, but relative to the system, it's old. And so we really need to get this water sewer special purpose district done so that these improvements can be made. So it's just more of an emphasis on, we don't want any more of these events, but that pump station is needing significant upgrades, so we don't have any more of these. So that's
All right.
why that was in there. Bay Street, again, this is just kind of more of a heads up. So the Bay Ford, Titus Ford, this is their proposed layout. Where you can see the proposed building, that's where the existing St. Vincent de Paul is.
Have they submitted for building permit?
They've submitted for their, I think they've submitted both.
SDAP and building?
Well, yeah, now it's a land, well, they are under the wire. They're still under a site development activity permit and a building permit. We're waiting to hear back on the Department of Transportation on frontage improvements on 166. They've basically showed no improvement to the frontage.
I have a concern about frontage improvements as well.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to get by with 3-foot non-ADA compliant sidewalks, but
Well, and I'm also thinking about how they could landscape that. I know that it's all about curb appeal and getting your cars as close to right away as possible, but we have an opportunity to really dress that up, make it look nice with some well spaced and low.
yeah, they've got a pretty substantial buffer, that crosshatched area there,
Yeah.
shaded area.
Yeah.
To me, the bigger issue is on the south side of Bay, there's, I don't know why the road is striped the way it is, but next time you drive through there, if you take note, you'll see that there's almost like a 7-foot shoulder on the south side of the road, and there's
Ah.
like no shoulder on the north side.
Huh.
We're supposed to have a 5-foot or a 4-foot, depending on which manual you read,
Off the fog line?
bike lane through there. You know,
That'd be nice.
and so
That would be huge, actually.
right. So we're working with the Department of Transportation. That may get restriped, and then they'll have the frontage improvements. So as a part of that, then the issue is we've got our old coast-to-coast pump station that is down there, and it's barely in the right-of-way. I mean, it's a very odd situation where that thing's located. And this is just kind of making sure you know that we're making sure that as part of this improvement that they're going to accommodate the reconstruction and the redevelopment of that pump station in their design so that we have access, and then that we have an emergency generator for that. Right now,
And that will stay in the same location.
the pump station will, but
Yeah.
there is no generator down there now. I'm proposing the area that's in orange
Mm-hmm.
to the west. It's closer to the hotel, but it doesn't run very often. And I know that if we try to propose it in the two locations that were in red, either right on Bay Street or over in the Maple Street right over the area that we lease, I think I'm going to get pushback from Titus. I would say right now that this orange area would be my preferred.
Mm-hmm.
Number two would then be in the Maple Street right of way to the south, very south of that. I wouldn't put it in these two spots that were in red in this island. That's just they're going to fight on that. So this is just kind of letting you know that as this project moves forward, not only are we dealing with getting the Bay Ford site and the site improvements, but we're also going to try to get access, better access, and a room for a generator and conduits actually laid, as part of that project.
So that would come out of the biennial budget? Would that be, that's
This
into
is
the
in-
next one?
This is in our
Next-
capital. This is one of the projects that's in our capital improvement program, and we actually have a pre-design on this. But the Marina pump station is, when you look at priority, what we did put in the budget for this year is to replace these pumps with Von Chopper pumps. We've got Von Choppers in the Marina pump station now, and that's significantly improved our ability to not have soft clogs. We're constantly down here pulling out rags and things, blankets, whatever.
Oh.
The Von Chopper will
Take care of that.
take care of that. So we've got the Von Choppers, that'll buy us more time, but then we've really got to focus on the Marina pump station, and we've got to get this McCormick Communities to work on our other McCormick 1 and 2. McCormick 1 is down there, kind of down below Evergreen Lumber on the old Clifton, old Clifton Road, and then McCormick 2 is the one that's right, kind of across the street from the main entrance there.
Yeah.
So they're gonna demolish their existing building
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll keep the existing building up,
until the new one's built?
then they'll build a new building. When the new building's up, then they'll go back and demolish the old building and then have their Ford dealership prescribed branding showroom area there. They have to have a certain area and standard for showroom and lot.
Will they still keep the lot across the street?
I don't know.
Are they just renting that or borrowing it or?
They're leasing
Okay,
the old Les Schwab.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, and I don't know, there's rumors that he may end up just buying all that and making that a used, complete, like a used car area
Kind of what it
completely.
is now.
Yeah, so,
Can I ask a question about the rock wall that's shown in the city's portion? What's the purpose of the rock wall, do you think? You see those little hatched marks, dash marks along the, I presume it's gonna be a parking area. So
oh, yeah, just because.
here, and then it wraps around here. And it's
Just-
just like it's 2.5 to 3 feet high.
Yeah, they're obviously gonna, as part of this redevelopment, they're regrading this and leveling it, so they're probably having to put in a small wall to keep the lot up where it needs to be, because they're putting in a pathway up to the.
Yeah.
That's
So-
actually nice.
It's nicer than what I thought we were gonna get, which was not, I thought they were gonna use the full parcel as much as they could, so I like that.
Right, and that's the area that's still within the Maple Street.
Isn't it our
waterway.
parcel?
It is our parcel.
They're under lease,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I know that they want to buy it, but that's a whole separate process
yeah.
and considerations. I mean, it's,
I have feelings about that. Especially
so,
if they keep the property across the street.
yeah.
But that's another discussion.
So that's just more of a coordination that we're looking
open
at.
a
that.
restaurant across the street if they're gonna buy it. Something pedestrian friendly.
Yeah.
Auto cafe or something.
So well 12, so this goes along with that first sketch to some degree.
Uh-huh.
So now this is the area in yellow. This is what, remember we got our permit to drill a well for well 12 and 13. So on the well 12, we've done now a conceptual so that we at least generally know where we would drill the well rather than just going helter-skelter and say, let's drill a well. So this is a preliminary plan that shows where we would put our reservoir, the reservoir that McCormick Communities would drill and construct. And that's basically a, I think it's a 1.1, so it's twice the existing reservoir is a 450,000 gallon. This is, I think it's 1.2 million. At least that's what it was when McCormick Land Company was going to build it. It was a 1.2 million gallon. So this is just a schematic to this point of general pipe sizes, where the well house would be, generators, all that. So that's just more of an update that we're moving ahead with that, and we've actually developed a conceptual plan for well 12. And the last item, and I guess that's why I wasn't panicking too much about having to run down and get batteries, because I know that this wasn't going to be a long meeting. The last item we have is an update on the well 13, the well 10. So as you remember, last year we went through a process, due diligence of, hey, we're only going to go from 10 to 13 if it's not going to be more money, we're not going to have time issues, we can do it. Remember, we went through a whole conversation about the due diligence that I made Thomas and BHC go through before I brought it back to this committee and then to council saying, hey, we're going to make the switch. Well, we had done that, and we had staff support, we had some emails that we felt comfortable moving ahead. Then we got into the point to where, finance department was, document or die, where's your source document? And they were asking about reimbursements, and, well, you got to get approval from the board. So we followed back up, and there had been significant changes in staffing at Department of Health. And so we went back through here this last month or so, went back through the Department of Health and Department of Commerce to get officially our scope change. And so the good news is that the email and then this letter officially approves our scope change. And this, I believe, it's going to be on the 28th agenda for the mayor to sign this amendment. And what the amendment does is it basically says you're still getting the same amount of money, you have the same amount of time, we're going to let you drill,
13.
change your source from 10 to 13, and that you don't have to reimburse any money, because that was one of the questions is for the Perry Avenue work, for example. They basically said, or our position was, and they supported that, is everybody comes into, not everybody, but a lot of projects come in with a certain scope. And as they go into that scope and they further the design, they hit a point to where they've got to change the scope. It's not, in that when we brought this to this committee or to the city council, the reason we did this was we could have just built well 10. We could have come up with an extra 100,000 and tried to rehab the well and try to get the source back to the way it was and deal with going down Perry Avenue. But it didn't make sense. It was like, why push a bad concept to fruition? And so Health and Commerce came back and said, no, we agree. We appreciate that you didn't just push a bad project for the sake of being a bad concept, just for the sake of doing that. So they say that happens, and they're completely supportive, and there's no reason to reimburse any of the money that you had on Perry. That was part of your due diligence to ultimately say, hey, time out. there's a better way to do this. And so, for us, because obviously we had that nervous moment of, oh, what if the Public Works Board doesn't approve this? And we'd already, started down the road. So this is okay, we got it now official in writing. We don't have to pay any money back. We're good to go. So on the 28th, the mayor will be signing the amendment and to the loan agreement. And at this point, it's direction to BHC. You need to get moving full steam ahead because we still have to be done by 2018. At the end of, I can't remember what I think it was June 30th, 2018. So we've got some work to do. Now, we do have the ability to request additional time, but it's one of those things that you don't request time now. It's like when I was at Seattle, when I was at Seattle U, if I went into my professor's room with a blank sheet of paper and said, hey, I need help on this problem, he'd say, no, don't bring me a blank piece of paper. You show me that you've been struggling with this for an hour and a half, and I'll show you the one thing that gets you over the hump, but don't bring me a blank piece of paper. And it's the same thing with this. We show that we're making effort and we're getting to the end, and now we have a defined time to complete. They'll approve an extension if we need it. So,
All right.
so really that's it. Any questions?
Did people really bring blank pieces of paper in for help like that?
I would say at some point somebody brought a piece of paper that had
Very little on it?
very little on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would never bring a blank piece, but I would say Professor,
I would imagine them yelling at you. You didn't do anything.
well, the other thing is at Seattle U, we had professors. We didn't have TAs. And they would stay till 6 o'clock every night. You know, so it was nice having a professor that was actually your teacher, and you could go and get help from your professor. But yeah, you didn't want to bring in something that didn't have some effort to it.
April 17th for
The next meeting, I believe, is April 17th, yeah. So, okay, I think we're good.
That's tax day. That's the
Oh,
new
yeah.
tax day.
Is it?
Yes.
I got 2 more days.
Uh-huh.
I just need to get that going. Okay.